The shopping bags hit our marble countertop with the distinctive thud of expensive leather meeting imported stone. 4 bags, 4 figures on my credit card statement, no doubt. Nola, my wife of 3 years, stood in our downtown Boston apartment like a general surveying conquered territory. "We need to talk, Silas," she announced, pulling out a chair at our dining table. The chair cost more than most people's monthly rent. I should know. I paid for it. I finished my coffee, savoring what I suspected might be my last peaceful moment for a while. Through our floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled below us in autumn splendor. The view cost extra. Everything with Nola cost extra. "About what?" I asked, though I already knew. The conversation had been building for weeks like storm clouds on a clear horizon. Nola arranged herself carefully, smoothing her designer dress, another recent purchase I'd noticed on our statements. She had this way of positioning herself for maximum visual impact, like she was perpetually posing for an invisible photographer. "About us, about our future, about whether you're serious about providing the lifestyle I deserve." I set down my mug and studied her face. Nola was beautiful in that high-maintenance way that required constant investment. Personal trainer 3 times a week, monthly spa treatments, a skincare routine that cost more than my car payment. Every inch of her was curated, optimized, perfected. "What exactly are you saying, Nola?" She leaned forward, her expression shifting into what I'd learned to recognize as her negotiation mode. "I'm saying that I have standards, I have expectations, and if you can't meet them, then maybe we need to reconsider this arrangement." Arrangement, not marriage, not partnership, arrangement. "Be specific," I said. "Fine." She reached into her purse, a limited edition piece that had required a waiting list and a deposit, and pulled out her phone. "I've been tracking our expenses, my expenses, specifically." Of course she had. Nola approached our relationship like a business analyst, reviewing quarterly projections. She swiped through screens, her manicured nails tapping against the glass. Clothing, $12,000 last month. Dining, $8,000. Beauty treatments, $4,000. Entertainment, $6,000. That's just the essentials, Silas. The baseline for maintaining my social presence. I nodded slowly. "Your social presence." Don't use that tone. You know how important image is in this city. You know the circles we move in. I can't show up to charity galas wearing last season's clothes. I can't be seen at second-tier restaurants. People notice these things. They certainly did. I'd learned that lesson the hard way over the past 3 years, watching Nola navigate Boston's social hierarchy with the precision of a military strategist. Every purchase was calculated. Every appearance was choreographed. "And your point is?" Nola's expression hardened. "My point is that you're an IT consultant, Silas. A very good one, I'll grant you that. But your income has limitations, and I'm starting to think those limitations are becoming problematic." I felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger, exactly. More like clarity. The kind of cold, sharp focus I got when debugging particularly complex code. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that if you can't afford my lifestyle, maybe you should step aside for someone who can." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Outside, a helicopter circled the financial district, probably carrying someone whose lifestyle Nola would find more appealing. I reached for my phone and opened my banking app. 3 supplementary credit cards in Nola's name. Combined limit of $94,000, monthly charges averaging $12,000, just like she'd said. I'd added her to my accounts during what I now recognized as the infatuation phase of our relationship. "You're absolutely right," I said. Nola blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. What?" "You're absolutely right. If I can't afford your lifestyle, you should be with someone who can." I tapped through the app's menu system, navigating to account management, card services, authorized users, Nola, Remove authorization. What are you doing? She asked. Taking your advice. I confirmed the removal request. I'm stepping aside. Nola stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against our hardwood floors. Silas, don't be dramatic. I'm trying to have a serious conversation about our future. So am I. I set my phone down and looked at her directly. You just told me that our marriage is contingent on my ability to fund your shopping addiction. You called it an arrangement. You suggested I step aside for someone with deeper pockets. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said, Nola, and I respect your honesty. I really do. She stared at me for a long moment, her expression cycling through confusion, irritation, and something that might have been panic. Fine, she said finally. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, then maybe I will find someone who appreciates what I bring to a relationship. I'm sure you will. Nola grabbed her purse and headed for the door, her heels clicking against our floors like a countdown timer. She paused at the threshold. Don't think I won't do it, Silas. Don't think I need you. I don't think you need me, Nola. I think you need my credit limit. There's a difference. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle our wedding photos on the nearby shelf. I stared at those pictures for a moment, images of a younger, more optimistic version of myself standing next to a woman I'd thought I understood. My phone buzzed. Card removal confirmation. Nola's access to my accounts had been terminated effective immediately. I poured myself another cup of coffee and settled into my home office. As an IT security consultant, I'd spent years helping companies protect themselves from internal threats. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd been living with one for 3 years. Time to see how quickly Nola could find her replacement funding. 72 hours. That's how long it took for Nola to materialize her new benefactor. I discovered this on Thursday evening while reviewing my email. A calendar notification caught my attention. A dinner reservation at Marcel's, one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants. The reservation was made using my credit card information, scheduled for Friday night at 8:30. The card that no longer worked. I leaned back in my desk chair and considered the implications. Nola had moved fast, faster than I'd anticipated. She'd found someone willing to take her to a restaurant where the tasting menu cost more than most people's weekly salary. Someone confident enough to use my card information, probably provided by Nola herself. Curious about her new patron, I did what any IT professional would do. I investigated. Social media provided the first clues. Nola's Instagram stories from the past 3 days showed her at increasingly expensive venues. The Mandarin Oriental Spa, a private shopping appointment at Saks, cocktails at the rooftop bar of the Four Seasons. Each post was tagged with location data, each venue represented a significant financial investment. But it was the reflection in a mirror at the jewelry store that gave me my first glimpse of her companion. A man in an expensive suit, watching as Nola tried on tennis bracelets. The image was partially obscured, but something about his profile seemed familiar. I enhanced the image using photo editing software and felt my stomach drop. Damon Vossel. I recognized him from industry conferences and business networking events. He ran a venture capital firm that specialized in tech acquisitions. More relevantly, he'd been circling my clients for the past 6 months, trying to poach them with promises of better service and lower rates. Nola hadn't just found a replacement funding source, she'd found my direct competitor. The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. The questions she'd been asking about my work, her sudden interest in my client meetings, the way she'd started suggesting restaurants near the offices of my biggest accounts. I opened my laptop and accessed the cloud storage account Nola and I shared for household documents. She'd forgotten about it, apparently, because her recent message history was still syncing to the shared drive. What I found there made my coffee taste like ash. 4 months of conversations with Damon, 4 months of detailed intelligence about my business operations, client contact information, meeting schedules, financial projections, and running through it all, references to me as the ATM and discussions of their exit strategy. One message thread particularly caught my attention. Damon, how much longer do you think before he figures it out? Nola, he won't. Silas is brilliant with computers, but clueless about people. He actually thinks I married him for love. Damon, and the client list? Nola, already copied. I photographed his files last week while he was in the shower. The Hartford group meeting is Tuesday at 10. You should be there. Damon, perfect. Once we land Hartford, we can accelerate the timeline. Nola, good. I'm getting tired of pretending to find him attractive. I sat staring at the screen for a long time, processing the scope of their operation. This wasn't just infidelity, this was corporate espionage with a side of personal betrayal. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcel's restaurant. Mr. Orrin, this is James from Marcel's. I'm calling about your reservation tomorrow evening. I don't have a reservation tomorrow evening. Sir, we have a booking for 2 under your name, with your credit card on file for the deposit. Cancel it. I'm sorry, sir, but there seems to be some confusion. The reservation was made by Mrs. Orrin, and she specifically requested our chef's table experience. The total cost will be approximately $1,800. $1,800. For one dinner. I almost laughed. James, I need you to understand something very clearly. My wife no longer has authorization to use my credit cards. Any charges she attempts to make will be declined. Silence on the other end of the line. Sir, are you certain? Mrs. Orrin seemed very confident about the arrangements. I'm certain. You might want to call her and suggest she bring alternative payment methods. Yes, sir. Thank you for letting us know. I hung up and checked my watch. 7:15 p.m. Nola and Damon were probably already at the restaurant, probably already ordering wine that cost more per bottle than most people spent on groceries in a month. At 8:47 p.m., my phone lit up with a declined transaction alert. Location, Marcel's. Amount, $1,847. 6 minutes later, Nola called. What did you do? Her voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I took your advice. I stepped aside. You can't just... Static filled the line as she apparently moved to a quieter location. You can't just cut off my cards without warning. Actually, I can. They're my cards, Nola. You were an authorized user. Emphasis on were. Silas, I'm at dinner with Damon Vossel. Yes, I know. Silence. How do you... I know a lot of things, Nola. I know about the client information you've been stealing. I know about the 4 months of planning. I know about the apartment you've been keeping in his building, furnished with my credit cards. More silence. I know about the spreadsheet you made tracking my accounts. The one titled Resource Assessment. Very thorough work, by the way. A man's voice in the background, confused and angry. Damon, realizing his dinner companion had just lost her funding. Silas, please, we can work this out. No, we can't. You made your choice, Nola. You chose someone who could afford your lifestyle. Unfortunately for you, that someone isn't me anymore. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside my window, Boston glittered in the darkness, full of expensive restaurants and wealthy men and women who could afford to maintain someone like Nola. She'd find her way. People like her always did. But first, she'd have to explain to Damon why their romantic dinner had just become his financial responsibility. I opened a bottle of wine, a modest vintage, nothing that would impress Nola's refined palate, and began planning my next moves. Because if Nola thought cutting off her credit cards was the extent of my response to 3 years of calculated deception, she was about to learn just how wrong she could be. The shared cloud account was a digital archaeological site, each file and folder representing a different layer of deception. I spent Friday morning excavating 3 years of carefully buried evidence, piece by piece. The apartment lease came first. Harbor Towers, Unit 4B. The same building where Damon lived, 3 floors up. Lease duration, 8 months. Co-signer, Vossel Capital Management, monthly rent $4,800. I cross-referenced the dates with my credit card statements. Furniture purchases from West Elm, Williams-Sonoma, and Restoration Hardware, all delivered to Harbor Towers. A complete bedroom set, living room furniture, kitchen appliances, even artwork for the walls. I'd furnished their love nest without knowing it existed. The financial documents were even more damaging. Loan applications for her father's manufacturing company, Gerald Varro Industries. 3 separate applications over the past 18 months, each requiring a personal guarantee from a spouse with adequate credit history. My signature appeared on all 3 documents. I'd never seen these papers before in my life. I photographed everything, created backup copies, and organized the evidence into folders. Then I called my lawyer. "Robert, it's Silas Orrin. I need to see you today." "Silas? Everything all right? You sound tense." "My wife has been forging my signature on loan documents. She's also been conducting corporate espionage against my business. How's your afternoon looking?" Robert Kellerman had handled my business contracts for 5 years. He was thorough, discreet, and expensive. Today, I needed all 3 qualities. "Can you be here at 2? "I'll be there at 1:30. Robert's office occupied the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise, with views of Boston Harbor that probably added $50 to his hourly rate. He reviewed my evidence with the methodical precision of a surgeon examining X-rays. "This is comprehensive," he said finally, "and potentially criminal. The forged signatures alone constitute fraud. The corporate espionage could be grounds for a civil lawsuit." "What are my options?" "Several. We could file criminal charges for the forgery. We could pursue civil action for the corporate espionage. We could also—" He paused, studying one of the loan documents. "Actually, this is interesting." "What?" "The supplementary card agreement you signed when you added Nola to your accounts. There's a clause here about unauthorized business expenses. If an authorized user incurs business-related charges without the primary cardholder's knowledge, the agreement becomes void and all associated debt transfers back to the authorized user." I leaned forward. "Meaning?" "Meaning that every business expense she charged to your cards, the apartment furniture, the client dinners, the networking events, all of that debt could legally be transferred to her name." "How much are we talking about?" Robert pulled out a calculator and began adding figures. "Based on these statements, approximately $63,000. $63,000. Enough to destroy someone's credit rating permanently. There's more," Robert continued. "The loan guarantees she forged. If we can prove you never authorized them, the banks will pursue her for the full amount. According to these documents, that's another $120,000. I sat back in my chair, processing the numbers. Nola had been so focused on extracting money from my accounts that she'd never considered the legal implications of her methods. "What do you recommend?" "Honestly, I'd recommend letting her bury herself. File the paperwork to transfer the credit card debt, then notify the banks about the forged signatures. Let them pursue collection. You stay clean. She faces the consequences of her choices." "And Damon?" Robert smiled. "Well, that's where things get interesting. If we can prove he knew about the corporate espionage, and these messages suggest he did, we could pursue him for tortious interference with business relationships. That's a civil matter, but it could be quite expensive for him." I left Robert's office with a folder full of legal documents and a clear action plan. The paperwork would take a few days to process, but the wheels were already in motion. My phone had 17 missed calls from Nola. I drove home through downtown Boston, past the shopping districts where Nola had spent so many afternoons with my credit cards, past the restaurants where she'd entertained Damon with my money, past the building where they'd been conducting their affair in an apartment I'd unknowingly furnished. The irony was almost poetic. Nola had demanded someone who could afford her lifestyle. What she'd gotten was someone who was about to make her lifestyle legally impossible. At a red light, I called my bank. "This is Silas Orrin. I need to speak with someone about transferring debt from authorized user accounts." "One moment, please, Mr. Orrin." The hold music was classical, peaceful. I found myself humming along as I waited for someone to help me give Nola exactly what she'd asked for. A new life, independent of my financial support. She was going to love her freedom. Saturday morning brought the first casualty reports. I was reading the financial section over coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from my coworker, Elliot. "Dude, is this your wife?" The attached link led to a gossip blog called Boston Elite, which specialized in documenting the social missteps of the city's wealthy. The headline read, "Restaurant Meltdown, Local Socialite's Card Declined at Marcel's." Below it, a grainy cell phone video showed Nola standing at Marcel's host station, her voice rising as she argued with the staff. The audio was poor, but her gestures were unmistakable. The sharp hand movements she made when she felt disrespected, the way she leaned forward when she was about to say something cutting. "Absolutely unacceptable. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my husband is?" The maitre d' remained professional, but his expression suggested he'd dealt with similar scenes before. Other diners had turned to watch, some holding up phones to record the drama. "Ma'am, I understand your frustration, but the card was declined. Perhaps you have an alternative form of payment?" That's when Damon appeared in the frame, looking like a man who'd suddenly realized he was about to pay for an $1,800 dinner he hadn't budgeted for. The video ended with him leading Nola away from the restaurant, her voice still echoing in the background. The comments section was brutal. "Imagine being this entitled. Who is she? Never seen her at any real events. That poor restaurant staff. Her husband probably got smart and cut her off." I scrolled through the responses, noting that several came from people I recognized, members of Nola's social circle, who apparently had no problem throwing her under the bus once her financial situation became public. My phone rang. Mia Rourke, one of Nola's closest friends. "Silas? Oh my God, I just saw the video. Is Nola okay?" Mia had always been friendly toward me, though I'd suspected her interest was more strategic than genuine. She worked in public relations and treated every social interaction like a networking opportunity. "She's fine, Mia, just experiencing some temporary cash flow issues." "Temporary? Silas, people are saying you cut off her credit cards. People are saying that she's been seeing someone else." "People say a lot of things. Is it true?" I considered my response carefully. Mia was connected to everyone in Nola's social network. Whatever I told her would be repeated within hours. Nola made it clear that she needed someone who could better support her lifestyle. I respected her honesty and stepped aside. Silence on the other end of the line. Stepped aside? She's free to pursue other options. I'm no longer subsidizing her social calendar. "Silas." Mia's voice dropped to a whisper. "There are rumors about her and Damon Vossel. Please tell me that's not why you—" "I don't discuss my wife's personal relationships, Mia. You'd have to ask her about that." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and began monitoring social media. Nola's Instagram account showed increasing desperation. Photos from expensive venues, but the timestamps revealed they were all old images being reposted. Her stories showed her at coffee shops and casual restaurants, a significant downgrade from her usual haunts. Damon's social media presence had gone completely quiet. By Sunday afternoon, the story had evolved. A second video appeared, this one showing Nola at the Prudential Center Mall, arguing with security guards outside a designer boutique. Apparently, she'd tried to return a handbag without a receipt, claiming it was defective. When the store refused, she'd demanded to speak with the manager, then the regional manager, then the corporate office. The security footage was clearer than the restaurant video. Nola's face was fully visible as she gestured angrily at the store employees, her voice carrying across the mall corridor. Other shoppers stopped to watch, and several began recording with their phones. This video didn't make it to the gossip blogs. It went viral on TikTok. Entitled wife became a trending hashtag. Thousands of comments poured in from people sharing their own stories of dealing with difficult customers. Nola's face appeared in memes and reaction videos. Someone even created a remix of her voice, turning her demands to speak with the manager into a dance track. Mia called again Monday morning. Silas, you need to do something. Nola's been calling everyone, asking for money. She tried to borrow $5,000 from Jennifer Walsh. She asked Susan Morrison to co-sign a loan application. People are starting to talk. What are they saying? They're saying she's broke. They're saying her marriage is over. They're saying... Mia paused. They're saying she was never really one of us anyway. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. These were people who'd accepted Nola's invitations, attended her dinner parties, posed for photos with her at charity events. But the moment her financial situation became precarious, they'd turned on her like sharks detecting wounded prey. There's something else, Mia continued. Something you should know about Nola and Damon. I'm listening. It wasn't just an affair, Silas. They had a plan. She was supposed to get half your assets in the divorce, then invest the money in his firm. They were going to be partners. I felt that familiar cold clarity settling over me. How do you know this? Because she asked me to be a character witness. She wanted me to testify that you were emotionally abusive, that you controlled her finances, that she feared for her safety. She said it would help her get a bigger settlement. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it. But Silas, I've known you for 3 years. You're not abusive. You're not controlling. You're just... nice. Maybe too nice. After Mia hung up, I sat in my office staring out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Nola was discovering what life looked like without my credit cards to cushion her fall. Somewhere out there, Damon was realizing that his investment in their relationship was about to cost him significantly more than he'd anticipated. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert Kellerman. Debt transfer approved. Bank notified about forged signatures. Legal proceedings initiated. She should receive notification by end of week. I replied, "Thank you." Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for apartments in my price range. It was time to start planning my own new life. One that didn't require a $63,000 credit limit to maintain. The notification arrived on Thursday morning via certified mail. I watched from my office window as the postal carrier climbed the steps to our building, carrying the registered envelope that would change everything. Nola had been staying at her sister's apartment since the weekend, but she still had keys to our place. She'd been coming by daily to collect clothes and personal items, always when she thought I wouldn't be home. Today, she'd be here for the mail. I heard her key in the lock at 11:30. Her footsteps moved through the apartment with the quick, nervous energy of someone who didn't want to be caught. Drawers opening and closing, the closet door sliding on its track. Then silence as she found the envelope. The scream that followed was audible through my office door. "Silas!" I walked to the living room to find Nola standing in our kitchen, the legal documents scattered across the marble countertop like evidence at a crime scene. Her face was pale except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. "What is this?" she demanded, holding up the debt transfer notification. "It's exactly what it looks like. $63,000 in unauthorized business expenses, now legally transferred to your name. You can't do this!" "Actually, I can. You signed the supplementary card agreement. You agreed to the terms. You just never bothered to read them." Nola's hands were shaking as she shuffled through the other documents. Bank notifications about the forged loan guarantees. A letter from Robert Kellerman's office outlining potential criminal charges. A notice that her father's company was being investigated for fraud. "This will ruin me," she whispered. "No, Nola. You ruined yourself. I just stopped enabling it." She looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Genuine fear mixed with desperate calculation. "Silas, please. We can work something out. We can fix this." "How?" I'll end things with Damon. I'll come home. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage. Our marriage ended the moment you decided to treat me like an ATM with a pulse. Nola's composure cracked completely. Tears started flowing, but they felt performative, like everything else about her. You don't understand. My father's company depends on those loans. If they get called in, he'll lose everything. 30 years of work, gone. Then maybe he shouldn't have asked his daughter to forge loan documents. He didn't know. I did it to help him. I thought I could pay everything back before you noticed. With what money? Damon's? She nodded miserably. He promised he'd take care of everything once his next fund closed. He said we just needed to be patient. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. And where is Damon now? He's not returning my calls. Of course he wasn't. Damon had gotten what he wanted, access to my client list and inside information about my business operations. With Nola's financial situation imploding, she'd become a liability rather than an asset. Nola, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You have two choices. You can declare bankruptcy, which will destroy your credit but protect you from the worst of the debt. Or you can try to fight this in court, which will cost you money you don't have and expose even more of your illegal activities. There has to be a third option. There isn't. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, calculating angles, searching for leverage she no longer possessed. What about the apartment? The furniture? That has to be worth something. The apartment lease is in Damon's company name. The furniture was purchased with fraudulent credit, so it's subject to repossession. You might get a few $1,000s if you're lucky. Nola's phone buzzed. She glanced at it hopefully, then her face fell. It's another creditor. You should probably answer it. She declined the call and looked around our apartment, the apartment that would soon be just my apartment. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You planned this for months, Nola. You documented everything. You made spreadsheets tracking my assets. You photographed my client files. This wasn't an accident or a moment of weakness. This was a systematic operation to extract as much money as possible from our marriage. I loved you, she said quietly. No, you didn't. You loved my credit limit. There's a difference. Nola gathered up the legal documents and stuffed them into her purse. At the door, she turned back one last time. You know, everyone always said you were too good for me. I guess they were right. No, Nola, I was just too naive to see what you really were. After she left, I walked through the apartment, noting all the empty spaces where her belongings had been. The missing artwork from the walls, the gaps in the bookshelf where she'd taken the expensive coffee table books she'd never actually read, the empty jewelry box on the bedroom dresser. My phone rang. Robert Kellerman. Silas, I have an update. Damon Vossel's attorney contacted me this morning. He wants to discuss a settlement regarding the corporate espionage claims. What kind of settlement? He's offering to pay your legal fees and provide compensation for any clients you lost due to the leaked information. In exchange, you agree not to pursue criminal charges. How much compensation? $50,000. I considered the offer. $50,000 wouldn't undo the damage to my business relationships, but it would cover my legal expenses and provide some cushion while I rebuilt my client base. Counter with $75,000 and a written admission of wrongdoing. I'll make the call. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine, a good bottle this time, not the cheap stuff I'd been drinking out of spite, and sat on my balcony watching the sun set over Boston Harbor. For the first time in months, the apartment felt peaceful. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Heard about Nola's situation. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I smiled and deleted the message. The last thing I needed was to get involved with another member of Nola's social circle. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for a new apartment. Something smaller, more affordable, more suited to my actual lifestyle rather than the lifestyle Nola had demanded I maintain. Something that felt like home instead of a showroom. But tonight, I was content to sit in the quiet and appreciate the sound of silence. No shopping bags hitting marble countertops, no demands for expensive dinners, no conversations about maintaining social presence, just peace. And the knowledge that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own choices. 8 months later, I ran into Nola at a restaurant downtown. She was working there, hostessing at a place where we used to dine as customers. She looked smaller somehow, worn down by the weight of her financial reality. She didn't look up when I was seated. I didn't request her section. Some stories don't need epilogues. Some endings are perfect exactly as they are.